With everybody talking about Arizona's passing game, Noah Fifita and Tedoroa McMillan, could there be a secret weapon for the Arizona offense this year?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, now we got a lot to get to this show, but we're going to talk all Arizona football, because again, we are also a football school. We're not like ASU where we stink in both sports. We excel in both sports. We are the University of Arizona. All right, now, going into this year, there is really no excuse for this offense, this Arizona offense, not to be absolutely dynamic / lights out / anything you want to call it. And a big reason why is the quarterback play. We all know that. Noah Fifita has the feeling of a kind of a transcendent type talent. Listen, I'm wrong on most things, but I thought Noah Fifita should have started at the beginning of last year. He is listen, I don't really care. I don't really care that he's small. I don't care about any of that. He can get the ball where he needs to get the ball to, and he is good in the process. Jed Fish clearly did not think Noah Fifita could do that. That's why he kept trying to play Jaden DeLaura, but Noah Fifita forced his way onto the field once there was an injury, and then he never came off. And when you watch Fifita, there is a variety of reasons why, but he is just a very smart football player. His arm is strong enough to be able to make all the throws. And as one of the wide receivers' parents said a while back, he said, the thing that I love about when my son is out there with Noah is that everybody eats. If my kid gets open, Noah is going to get him the ball. Period. So again, there's not any of these favorites that are being played. If you get open, Noah is going to get the ball to the person that is in the best position to get the most yards, period. And that also obviously works very well with the passing game where you've got the best returning wide receiver in the country. I don't care what anybody says. Luther Burden, sure, he's a great guy, good football player. He is not the best wide receiver in the country. Tedoroa McMillan is the best wide receiver in the country. And you got a bunch of different guys that we will get to. But with all of that said, and we're going to get back to that, I think you're going to be looking at a running back room that is very, very good. And some of these guys aren't even on campus yet, but let's just talk about who's on campus through practice so far. First of all, you got Rayshon Speedy Luke. Fam, love Fam. Fam is big time. And not only is Fam big time, I think Fam's going to surprise a lot of people. Fam's also bulked up. Fam's become a pretty big guy. And the one thing that we saw with Fam is that he has football speed. He's got functional football speed. Yes, he's also a track star type. We're going to get to another one that's got some of that as well. But Fam can make you miss, and I think he just needed a little bit more strength. Very, very impressive, though, by what he is able to do. And not only is it super impressive what he's able to do, you can just see that there's a breath of fresh air with him because I think he's kind of invigorated having a coaching staff that I think kind of believes in him. I mean, honestly, I don't believe that we had his father on the show a while back or on a different show, and his father said, like you would always hear these things about how, Speedy, he's got the fumbling issues. How would you know? Again, we were at all the practices, and again, maybe there's stuff that goes on behind the scene, but you would never really be able to tell, and there was always this self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I told you, can't play Speedy because of that. It never really made a lot of sense, and honestly, it rang kind of hollow, I think, to a lot of people. But either way, I think Speedy's going to have a very nice little role on this team, and not only a nice role, I think he's also going to be able to show people what he's all about. And then another player that I think is kind of like him, where I think ideally you'd redshirt him, but I think he's also going to be too good to not have on the field, is Jordan Washington. Kid out of LA, a burner. if there's anybody on the team that's faster than Speedy, it's probably Jordan Washington. That's how fast he is. He is a game breaker. And another player, 4-star kid, I think a lot of people thought that he would probably follow Jedd Fisch to Washington. He said, no, I will stay here and I will back the A. And we obviously like seeing that. We like seeing that a great deal. But he's another really, really good player. It'll be interesting to see now what Arizona does with him. It certainly helps that he's here early and be able to get some of that strength on. But again, this is a player that is not, again, he's not the biggest dude in the world for sure. So you got to keep that in mind. But from a returner perspective and from a running back perspective, I think you'd like to see it. Brandon Johnson is another one, another burner. Stop me if you've heard this before. That player obviously out of Palmdale. He's been here a couple years now. I think that there's a chance that he's going to hit the field as well. But either way, what you got to like about this unit, what you got to like about this team is that there is a lot of speed to burn. And I am hoping that Arizona decides that they are going to play the best, players. And not only play the best players, that they are going to look to try to get players have them return kickoffs. Now, again, Jacob Cowing got better at that as the season went on, but generally under Jedd Fisch, it was kind of the Anthony Simpson, go back there and just fair catch it. I don't really believe in that because if you've got players, I don't believe for a second that they recruited Speedy Luke or anybody to say, don't worry about it. Just go back there and fair catch it. You return kids like that to return kicks, period. Point blank, that's what you do. And I'd love to be able to see Arizona continue to do that. And I think that there's every reason to believe that Arizona can do that. And honestly, those three guys I think are a big part of what Arizona is going to do. Now, again, it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. But those three dudes, all good. Then you look at some of the other guys that are going to be a little bit of the bell cows. Now, Quali Conley. Dealing with a couple family issues, but he is somebody you look at San Jose State. He rushed the ball, and not only did he rush the ball, he was also able to get into the open. He was also able to get into the open field. He was also able to make people miss, and I think that's a big part of what Arizona is looking for. Listen, you're probably not going to replace Jonah Coleman. You're probably not going to replace Jonah Coleman just like with one player. But I think that you could also have a variety of players that come in and are able to kind of fill that role. I think Conley, I think, is going to be one of those players. Not only do I think he's going to be one of those players, I think he's also probably going to be a guy who is going to be able to make a real difference. Then you got the big dog, dude out of New Mexico State, another guy that huge. And I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you, that he wasn't a little bit more highly rated. I absolutely love him. And I think when you've got a kid like Ja'Cory, you've got somebody that is probably the leader in the clubhouse to be that big bell cow type back. But either way, you've got a running back unit right now that is very, very good. And there is a little bit of everything for you. There's there's guys that can break there. There's guys that can break it and not only break it, but have functional football speed. That is a big part of this, is that it's not just fast. We've seen players in the past where, they weren't really they were fast, but they didn't really do a ton. And I think that's kind of what's frustrating is we've seen the TJ Johnsons of the world that, yes, they're fast, but what do you really get out of that? And I think with Arizona, you didn't get a ton out of that. So again, these guys are all big. These guys are all fast. And on top of that, they're also big. So Arizona, I think that running back room is going to be incredibly useful. And not only incredibly useful, this is going to be a team that I think is going to be able to have a lot. And I say a lot of talent out of the backfield. And I would bet on Arizona to go over and above. And again, if I wanted to bet on them first of all, then we're going to get to the tight ends. But if I wanted to bet on them, I would go to FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel.com/locked-on. This is the best time of the year. You absolutely want to be part of FanDuel. And not only do you want to be part of FanDuel, you want to be part of FanDuel because it is fun. Everybody likes getting involved in something that is kind of, well, let's just call it what it is. Fun. And it's betting. We're at the stage, we're all kind of at the stage now where basketball's winding down. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't bet on other stuff, but basketball is winding down, obviously. You got baseball around the corner. Baseball bores me senseless, but guess what? I can watch baseball if I've got a little bit of a bet on the game. So that's where I think you want to see it. Either way, check it out. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Another one of these ones where you will thank me later because it is fun. Check it out. FanDuel. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about this offense because, again, I think everybody knows that this is a squad. This is a unit that is going to – this is a unit that I think is going to be very, very good. It's going to be a potent offense. But I think a big part of the potent offense that people are talking about is that you need to be able to have a unit that – is well-rounded and a lot of guys that play. Watching this Arizona team, the one thing that I think that we all know that is definitely going to occur with this unit is the tight end position is going to be utilized and is going to be utilized a lot. Now, I think with a lot of players on this team, you think of it's going to be key. Is it going to be Kean Burnett? That's who I still think it's going to be. And honestly, I would be a little surprised if it wasn't Kean Burnett. But a dude like Kean Burnett is also going to have some players biting at his heels, like a Tyler Powell, for example, or a Dorian Thomas. But Roberto Miranda was running first string with them. I liked seeing that. Roberto Miranda is a very good player. At least he's been in practice. I don't think that he's going to be getting a lot of snaps, but you can tell that the tight end is something that this offense is very, very much going to focus on. And not only is it going to focus on, they are going to, I think, really push the envelope there, and I'd like to see it. Jedd Fisch obviously did a really good job with Tanner McLaughlin. There's no doubt about it. But I think one thing that you always kind of felt that maybe Arizona left a little bit on the table as far as Kean Burnett. Now, again, you might say, well, what more are you going to get? One of the things that I didn't like about Fisch is that I didn't like how he rotated players. I thought that there should have been more. I thought there should have been more of a rotation. Now, I kind of get it with Tanner McLaughlin because, again, he was a beast. He's an NFL player. He's going to be a pretty high pick, by the way. But I didn't understand it at the wide receiver spot. Why Montana Lamonius Craig had to play the entire game. He was a fine player, but it wasn't like he was so good he couldn't come off the field. Tight end, I think, is going to be a little bit like that this year. I don't know that there's going to be that one alpha where you're like, man, can't take him off the field or anything like that. So I think that plays very much into Arizona's hands is being able to play a variety, a myriad of players. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the tight end spot because, again, there's a lot to like about this position there for U of A. You've got some big, talented guys. And I think that, I think this is a unit that is going to be fully utilized. And watching practice so far, you can tell that there's an emphasis on it. Now, one thing I will say about this offense, we're going to get to defense there in a little bit, is that we're going to know very, very quickly, what kind of coach Dino Babers still is when it comes to offense, because this is a loaded offensive unit. We've talked about, obviously, everybody knows what Noah Fafita is at this point. He's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. You've got one of the best wide receiver rooms in all of college football. Obviously, T-Mac, everybody knows about, but you've also, you've got a Kevin Green, who I think is going to break out. I think Kevin Green's going to have a huge year. Malachi Riley, same thing. You got Montana back. You've got talent there at that wide receiver unit for sure. We've already talked about the tight ends. We've also talked about the running backs and how that could be a little bit of a secret weapon. But I think another one that you also got to say that is going to be a strength of this team is the offensive line, honestly. I mean, Jonas Savaiinaea, they're moving him back and forth. Jonas Savaiinaea is what an NFL offensive lineman first-round pick looks like. We've talked about Big Jonah a ton over the years. Jonah's a stud. No other way around it. Jonah's a stud. And so with Jonah, and then you got Raymond Polito back, assuming he's fully engaged. Between Jonas Avenea, Raymond Polito, then Wendell Moy, and Josh Baker, you got 4 guys coming back that can all play, and they're going to be a year more experienced, which I think is going to be a huge part, especially for a young kid like Polito. And then you got Alex Deuce, who, I always thought they were going to put it tackle, but it also appears that they're going to try to put him inside at times. That's kind of an intriguing possibility as well. But either way, this is like I said, this is a unit on offense that is loaded. And again, listen, Jedd Fisch, my only problem with Jedd Fisch was how he left. Not that he left, but he was slimy on his way out, but I got to give him a lot of credit for the talent that he left here. He definitely left Arizona in a more talented, he definitely left Arizona in a much better spot than when he found it. And this offense, again, should be really good. I'm ecstatic to see the running back room. I think a lot of people are like, well, you lost Michael Wiley, you lost DJ Williams, you lost Jonah Coleman, and those are fair questions. But I also think that people are going to be very, very impressed with this unit because, again, one thing Brennan was able to do is he was able to bring in some transfers. Granted, they're from some smaller schools, but there's still some pretty good players across the board. And you've also got speed. You've also got talent as well. So there's that. Now, on the defensive side, Dwayne Aquina. It's been a long time since Dwayne Aquina's called plays, really. Actually, you have to go back to maybe offense. But Dwayne, I'm very excited by by Dwayne Aquina being here on defense. I don't know how long Dwayne Aquina is going to be the defensive coordinator here at the U of A, but I will take a couple, 2-3 years of Dwayne Aquina. Watching him in practice, he is all over the place. The game has certainly not passed him by, and you could tell last year. Just by watching the improvement that defense made under Johnny Nansen in that second year. And I think a lot of that was Dwayne Aquina. And honestly, Dwayne Aquina and Johnny Nansen, I think, got along very, very well. I think they had a very strong relationship. And not only did they have a strong relationship, they were going to go to Texas together. Now, when Brent Brennan got the job, I thought he made a masterful hire. Dwayne Aquina, to me, was the dude that needed to be hired for that position, and you got him in here. Again, I think he is going to be very, very good, and who knows, for a while, maybe you kind of use this as a stop, maybe you could start grooming somebody to be that coach that takes over for him. I don't know. I don't care. But watching Aquina, though, and they're going to be more aggressive. The defense was much better last year for sure, but I think with Aquina being able to really do what he wants, really being able to let her rip, that Arizona, I think, is going to be in an even more advantageous position because this is going to be all his defense. And this is a guy that has forgotten more about, defense than I think a lot of coaches have ever even learned. You look at his track record just from coaching, just from coaching DBs. I mean, he's literally probably the most qualified defensive backs coach in college football history, whether you want to look at first round picks, whether you want to look at Thorpe Award winners, whatever your barometer is. Dwayne Aquina is that dude, and I think it's going to be a fun defense to watch. Now, again, there's stuff that you got to find. You got to find another DB opposite Tacario Davis at that cornerback spot. All 3 of the safeties are back. That's obviously a good thing. You got Jacob Manu. Whoever's going to be next to him, probably going to be Tay Brown. You got to find out what you're going to do there. And then I think the starting D-line is probably spoken for, but I think you've got to go out in the portal, and I think you've got to get some more. I think you got to get some talented guys in there as well. But overall, I think this is going to be a pretty good unit by the time the season hits. Again, you still got to address some issues, but I'm impressed. And like I said, I have very few concerns with Dwayne Aquina leading that charge. Now we're going to talk about the schedule here in a second, but first let's talk about Amazon TV, my friends, Amazon Fire TV. All right. Now, everybody knows streaming is the wave of the future. Fire TV is where it is at. Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV, your sports destination. You go in there and you can find all kinds of sporting events, and it's not just sporting events. You can find a lot of different stuff. But also what's cool about this is that that it's not going anywhere. That with Amazon.com, You're Locked On Fire TV. You are getting ahead of the curve. You're not being left behind because this is something that everybody is going to be utilizing. Streaming is not going anywhere. It's not fully here yet as far as, replacing linear options, but it's also probably not that far away either. So why not get ahead of the curve like everybody else and learn, and again, go to learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV, your sports destination, my friends. Again, check it out. This is the time. Get familiar with it because it's not going anywhere. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the Arizona schedule. Listen, I'm a big fan of going into the Big 12 when it comes to football. I think that, it's definitely a fourth when it comes to the big conferences because it just is what it is. But it's going to be a fun conference that you're going to have multiple bids that are going to be able to get into the college football playoff picture. And that's honestly the way that it should be. I look at all these rosters, though, and maybe I'm being a little bit of a homer. Could be. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. But I think that Arizona can absolutely hang with any of these schools going in there. Now, I know Kansas State is thought of very highly. I get it. Lost your quarterback, though, to Ohio State. I get you got somebody else coming in. Colorado stinks. I'm glad that nobody in Vegas is really buying the Colorado hype. Utah, assuming Cam Rising is solid, he's going to be good. They're going to be good as well. But I think Arizona holds their own with pretty much anybody, honestly. And not only anybody, I think that they can win this conference in that first year. Now, a lot of this is going to come down to how good is this coaching staff? We don't really know that one yet. Dino Babers, how good? Because there's no excuse. This should be a dynamic offense. Not only should be a dynamic offense, this is an offense that should be able to win games on its own. And will the defense be good enough? Again, I don't need a top 5 defensive unit in the country, but I do believe that this should be an upper level Big 12 defense, and especially with some of the players that you have coming back. And if that's the case, then Arizona is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams, mainly because Arizona is good. So again, Brent Brennan has walked into a pretty advantageous situation. Seems like a good dude. He's been a solid coach, but he's also never coached talent like this before. So that's going to be a big part, I think, of what Arizona does. And again, the character of a lot of these kids that they're going to be coaching as well. But overall, I think you got to be pretty enticed. I think that Arizona is going to win the conference. I really do. As we get closer, Arizona's still got to add some more players. You got to get more depth on the D line. I get it. You got to add some more corners. But overall, I think this is going to be a good team, certainly better than Washington this year. And I don't look at any team in this conference and say Arizona can't beat them. I also don't look at any quarterback and say I'd rather have them than Noah Fafita. So there's that as well. But again, get in on that FanDuel. Go in and pick Arizona now because, again, we've been ahead of the curve a little bit here, telling you to keep picking the over on Arizona football the last couple of years. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. All right. Now, tomorrow we are going to get back to some Arizona basketball again. We are going to start talking a little bit about the transfer portal, some names that might be relevant for Arizona football fans, to have people to certainly keep an eye on. But again, this is obviously it's the off season, but the off season is when champions are made, and there are some names, especially at that guard position, some power forward options as well that we are going to talk about. And we'll probably try to get to a little bit of Arizona football as well. But as always, very, very much appreciate you guys making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Again, it is absolutely fantastic to back the A. Bear down, back the A. We will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen of the day.